Hello and welcome from our studios here in Munich in the auditorium of our x-dream events, our very first international x-dream event that takes place just now. I'm now connected with two of our guests in remote places. This is Michael from the x-dream media team, and it's Vikas from the Venera technologies team. And here in the studio I have Oliver Meurer from Flowworks. We will talk right now about asset aggregation for OTT publishing. We want to give you a little bit of a guide. The idea is to explain the end-to-end process, what happens from creating OTT content towards it is consumed. The first question goes to Michael. What does an asset package need to contain when it's uploaded to an OTT portal? So what is a user, so a business user, expecting to receive from his content agency, from a broadcaster, from any other that delivers video on demand content?
Sure. Quite a bunch of things actually. Let's take a movie for example. A movie consists of a video, audio track, subtitles, and of course nowadays you oftentimes have movies in multiple languages. You need to deliver them in multiple languages, multiple subtitles. So you need those. You need all kinds of different pictures. A movie poster, pictures of the movie itself, images that are basically important to the customer who is browsing the platform and who you actually want to convince to watch or buy your movie. In terms of pictures, a scrubber board comes to mind, for example. And then you have a whole ton of metadata, of course. Metadata is, on the one hand, important for the customer at home in front of their device. They would like to have a short description of the movie. A long description, you might need the title, of course, the director, who are the actors, when was it made, stuff like that. And then on the other hand, you have metadata that is also important for the provider of the platform itself. Things like rights, pricing, licensing info. How long am I allowed to show that movie to my audience? A whole ton of things. Something that also comes in mind quickly, maybe movie. You need the movie on the one hand, but you might also need a trailer for that movie. So, quite a lot of things.
Thanks, Michael. So you are definitely our specialist on how to process such material, and Oliver is our specialist for how to create such asset packages. And Oliver, you can probably give us an insight in when it comes to the request of sending out such a video-on-demand asset package. What is the situation where such a workflow starts with? Is it all given at the very beginning?
Well, it actually starts with a business decision. So the first thing that you need is a movie, and you need to know that you have the rights to the movie. And then it starts, because people have that, and they know that, and then they realize I probably have most of the things that I need to create the package, but I don't have them in one place. It's spread all over the organization. It might not even be in my organization because I sourced the content from elsewhere, so I need to go around like in a shopping cart and start adding stuff off the shelf. Unfortunately, the shelf might be in a totally different building, so it's actually quite a tricky process because at the end of the day, it is absolutely crucial that you do this as automated as you can. Otherwise, you're going to ruin your margin right before you even started distributing a single file.
Right. So that means there's a high risk that the costs in creating such an asset package is higher than what you earn from.
Yeah.
Or at least you have substantial costs that need to pay back later on.
Exactly. So when I said the first thing to know is it's a business decision, so the second thing you have to do as part of the business decision is understand where are the various bits and pieces that you need. And then once you've found that out, attach that to your system that makes the package, that aggregates the package, including third-party or even external sources. And keep in mind, some material may not even exist. You don't have a trailer. So you need to create a trailer, so that needs to come into the equation as well.
Yeah, so you said that you need to automate it as much as possible. That sounds like this is a partly automated workflow or business process to create such assets packages, but it's also partly a manual workflow. Could you describe what's happening?
But it really depends on what your source material looks like. If you already have an organized digital archive in your organization, you can probably go straight to full automation, because we, for example, have made sure that all the existing material within your organization is somehow linked into your digital archive. If you're only beginning and you haven't so far taken the dive of going for a digital archive, you will for sure start off with quite a lot of manual processing. We can, of course, help and facilitate that, but there's a steep learning curve, and you have to take that at some point, because otherwise it's not going to be a profitable business for you. So typically we have, when we start one of these processes for a customer, we have a steep learning curve. There's a fair amount of manual processing, and we try and obviously assist that as much as we can. But every time we realize, okay, all the photos are probably here, we'll attach that system. And so we increase the percentage of automation as we go.
So the most obvious is the main video. Then you just spoke about the photos, so like the cinema placards and other things like that. But when it comes to the point about subtitles and additional audio tracks, so other languages, where is this retrieved from? So who produces that?
That's the point. In a lot of cases, you don't have it in all the languages that you like to publish in, because you might not have it in Hindi. But you know, the platform that you're publishing on might be a great success in the Indian market, so you need to just post-produce a Hindi dub. A decent digital archive system is also a production asset management system, like Flow Center, of course. And so we'll assist you in that. Basically, it's kind of, we guide the user through a checklist, items that he needs. So items that we've retrieved automatically get a green check. Things that are missing or of the wrong quality, or there's a bit of metadata missing, that depends who can fill that out. Sometimes your internal editor can simply add the stuff, upload the stuff. Sometimes, excuse me, you need to actually post-produce something. At that point, the PAM part kicks in, and we will allow you to navigate your way through an external production process, which obviously should be quick, should be easy to handle, with that right audio track going into exactly the right basket for you to do your delivery. The last item ticks green, and we send off the package to the VOD platform.
Yeah. So, but is that something that happens all by myself, or do I need to interact with external parties to provide all that material?
Well, in most cases, you will actually end up interacting quite a lot with external parties. Partly, as I said, you know, the content that you've licensed is actually produced by a studio. So you need another description or more current one. You need an update on the music score. You need to make sure that the music in there has all the rights. Somebody else is handling your contract rights for you, etc., etc. So there tends to be quite a lot of interaction. And because I talked about the business needs and, you know, protecting the margin by automation, we will work very hard to even make those sort of interaction points as easy and as fast for the users to manage them, so we don't end up having very long waits, lots of additional time being consumed in finding the metadata or entering the metadata. And for sure, once the metadata is somehow entering the system, it finds its way to the right piece of content for that job.
Michael, Oliver spoke about that, about the automation, and you are definitely our automation and integration specialist. So how can all such sources accessed to retrieve the required essences? So to what degree is automation possible, and how is this done?
It pretty much depends on where you are retrieving that information from, but based on my experience, I would say that's mostly via API integrations, or going into a database which contains the information that you require, and you just go in there, grab the information you need, and go from there.
So, and that applies to what type of essences? So as we spoke about the pictures, the metadata, subtitles and all that things, is that something that I can retrieve automatically? If existing?
If it exists, of course. You might have a database which contains the information, the meta information for your movie, and you go there and you know, okay, that's the title, and you go in there and grab all the information you need. Video from maybe from an archive solution, you go in there, okay, where's my video that belongs to that asset, and grab it from there. Yeah.
So I guess I'm not retrieving it all the time in the format that I would love it to be. What would happen then for the processing of video, audio, subtitles, pictures, and so on?
That depends. You have to prepare it in some way in order to be able to distribute it, of course. An example I have is we have one situation where a customer has a set of rules or a set of requirements as to how a video file has to look like if it's being sent to them. So you might have to go into a transcoding process, because if your video comes out of a cutting software or from a playout server, you might not want to send exactly that file to your customer. You might want to transcode it into a more processable, a more easily processable format. Then you might need to add information like SCTE markers for ad insertion, because you, as the studio, for example, you want to decide as to when ads should be shown within the video and not let somebody else decide that. Yeah.
Oliver, so when, you want to...
I actually just want to add to something that Michael just mentioned, because we have the example with Viacom. We do a lot of distribution for MTV Viacom, and the integration is absolutely key. The way it works at Viacom, for example, the editor who's in charge of actually monetizing the content, he's very familiar with the scheduling software, but he's not actually familiar with the machine behind it. So what we did, we simply said, we'll leave the editor just work on the scheduling. And he says, I've got 100 episodes of Pimp My Ride and I'm going to publish them in Norway. And he can do that in his scheduling software. And we simply get an order sheet really from the scheduling software. So we then, as the workflow manager and kind of the bit that's attached to everything else at MTV, we know we need this file, we need it with Norwegian audio. Okay, that doesn't exist, so we'll take English, but we'll add Norwegian subtitles. And whilst we're at it, we're also going to add Swedish and Finnish and German as subtitle options. And then we go to the metadata database, which is separate at MTV. We pull the metadata, just like Michael was saying, and then we realize there's no long description. So we actually prompt the other system to say, look, we need this piece. Your users haven't entered that. Please notify your users that they need to do that now. They have 24 hours to do it. You need to prompt them, so we're telling another machine what to do, and we'll come back in 24 hours to see if that metadata is now available, i.e. somebody has typed it in. So building those workflows, obviously dependent and driven by the APIs that Michael was just talking about, is absolutely crucial to automating. That's what I mean by automation. And if you just even vaguely imagine how complex these packages can be, because those exact 100 episodes of Pimp My Ride don't just go to Norway, they'll also go to Turkey, to Brazil, to Taiwan. So the amount of versions you're going to get is just huge. So if you don't do that automatically, you're dead.
Yeah, you are lost. So from projects in the past, I remember that there are often certain essences or data simply have gotten forgotten. Everyone thinks about the video, the audio, and probably the subtitle, and yes, we need a description. But what else does such an asset package need to include to make it complete?
Yeah, most importantly to you actually is your rights information. because you're going to publish it, but maybe there's a deadline by which you have to depublish that. So you better be telling Netflix that that's valid until the following date, otherwise you're going to have a lawsuit. A little bit more banal, but nevertheless extremely important, pictures. People say, oh, I've got a nice poster image, but is it cropped the right way? Because every platform will want a different cropping, and you better make sure that your cropping is automated, but then still has the title and the main characters in the middle of the picture, and not half cut off. So there's an awful lot of detail work to be done. Metadata, descriptive metadata, we talked about, Michael's already mentioned it, hugely important because, if your pictures and your metadata aren't sexy, people aren't going to click it on the VOD site. Yep. It's just not going to happen.
Does it mean it has to include also certain control information?
Control as in?
It is being placed at the end in a certain category, or
yes,
in
sure.
Like yesterday we spoke about campaign management with Peter from Bright Media, and obviously such control information somehow needs to be sent over to the publishing systems.
Absolutely. Maybe you're doing an Easter special and it's got a rebated price. Maybe your platform partner has a Christmas special, and that piece needs to go into the Christmas special because there's an add-on. So you buy or watch this movie, and I don't know, you get a free washing machine, whatever it might be, but you need a flexible system in order to be, think of couponing, that's a big topic at ProSieben, for example. So there's lots of additional things you can do over your OTT channels, and you should be doing them, but you need a system that can accompany that. Think also marketing specials. So I'm whizzing something off to Sky. Now, I know Sky is very proficient at doing end consumer marketing. You may need to attach additional items, special rebates, coupons, additional things you're going to give the final viewer, etc., etc. So, that package always sounds sort of smallish. It's not small. It's actually big. It has a lot of components, and it has it in lots of versions.
For linear TV, we spoke with Peter about versioning as well. Is that happening in VOD as well?
To a lesser degree, yes, it does. I mean, just imagine a simple case. You have a video, or a movie rather, that you've already uploaded to lots of VOD platforms. And now one of the actors in that movie does something special. He dies. He gets an Oscar, whatever. You need to maybe recut the trailer to make that person more prominent, and you do what we call a source file replace, in that case replacing the source of the trailer, of course, but that needs to be communicated to all the platforms. So you need to know, okay, I've got a new trailer in this package, where did I send this? So I need to send it again, or at least part of the package, and be able to communicate with the recipient system that knows, oh, okay, I get a new trailer for an existing media container, and that needs to be replaced.
Yeah. Content updates, probably a topic that we can talk about later on with Michael again. But let's move on a little bit in the all-over business process. Vikas, you are our specialist for all types of quality control. This is your core competency. I would like to ask you, that moment when this asset package is complete, might it make sense to raise the question why quality control is an important element in asset package preparation? And what type of quality control would we then run?
Sure, Stephen. See, I think quality control has always been a very important process in any content delivery workflow, especially when it's going to consumers. So, and in today's time, consumers are very particular about the quality of content they wish to consume, because there are a lot of competing services and so on. So every content provider has to be on toes always to deliver a top-notch quality. And it's not just that. In the viewing environment is also so varied today. Someone may be watching the content while moving in a car. Someone may be watching on their laptop. Someone may be watching on their 4K television. So in today's VOD publishing environment, it's very common to have at least 10, 15 different encoding profiles designed for different network environments and different viewing screens and so on. So it's not just the QC itself, but I think even the automation has become extremely important, because when we talk about 10, 15 different encoding profiles. We are talking about 10, 15 times of content that needs to be put through QC. So that's where even automation comes in, and so that content providers can quickly go through and ensure whatever is being delivered to the user is for an acceptable or is at an acceptable quality for that particular delivery profile.
Thanks, Vikas. Michael, so now let's assume this asset package is complete and ready to go. What's the way from, let's say, the supplier, what can be like an agency, a broadcaster, or a content owner, studio, towards the VOD portals?
There's various transport methods that are fairly common in the industry based on my experience. What I find kind of interesting is that oftentimes you still see the old but proven methods of data transfer. For example, FTP. You see FTP in most cases, I want to say. Then there's of course software like Aspera or Signiant or a File Catalyst who are in the business of UDP accelerated secure file transfers. Another example that I find quite interesting as well, I don't see it that often personally myself yet, but we have one customer who receives their assets via the Amazon cloud, and from the workload perspective, it's implemented in a way where we receive a message from the cloud, from the Amazon SQS service, which informs us about a new asset having arrived. And then we go there via S3 and grab that asset, download it, and then handle it from there. So, yeah, as I said, there's a bunch of different ways, and in most cases, it's not limited to one, but you need to be kind of able to support most of those.
What about security? So FTP sounds like there's not that much security and exchange via public clouds. That's not a topic?
I should have probably said SFTP or FTPS, the more secure versions of FTP. Yes, that's true. In terms of cloud, I mean, it's not like anybody can access that. It's transferred via HTTPS if you're doing it right. And again, I haven't seen it too often yet. But in this one case, it seemed to work fine.
Now, when the content has received at such systems, what is happening next? So, what happens within this kind of a back-end system between someone has uploaded via FTP and it's now available on my content catalog that I as a consumer can see it?
A lot of things. But to keep it short, to keep it short, I usually see the same main steps, which are to receive the asset, download it, or whatever is necessary, unpackage it, analyze the metadata, analyze the file from a technical perspective. Did I receive everything that I require in order to process it? So it's unpackaging, metadata analysis, and then usually followed by transcoding. And then once you have all your essences, you upload them usually to, in the cases that I know, into CDVR solutions, and then further forward the metadata into CDN solutions, so that in the end it knows, hey, we have a new movie, for example, available. But the devil lies usually, in the details, and between those main steps, you often have to go a lot of smaller steps that allow those bigger steps to complete successfully. For example, CDVRs are often very iffy about the exact specifications of a video file that they will accept. So you need to understand your way around setting up transcoding profiles. But before it goes even to that, you might have to analyze the video file in order to be able to determine what kind of profiles need to be used. Maybe you're even in a situation where you have a customer who is running an old transcoding software and they do not feel like replacing that, and maybe that software has an issue with a certain kind of file. And then you have to find that out and you have to do some sort of pre-processing. Oftentimes we also have steps that fill in the gaps in a package that we received. So, for example, a good example I have would be the scrubber board. We have one customer where they are not receiving that within their package, but they need that. So, in that case, you might do something where you create the scrubber board and attach it to the package.
Michael, we spoke about transcoding in the preparation step. Why are you naming transcoding again? So isn't it that you receive ready-to-go files that you can put right away on your CDN?
No. You still receive different kind of files from different content providers, and they maybe are normalized to a certain degree, but again, as I said, since the CDVR, for example, can be very specific, you have to go and transcode them again, and usually you receive a single file and you need to create a multitude of transport streams, and therefore it's usually necessary to do the transcoding again, yes.
Thank you. Vikas, let's come back to the quality control topic. As we just heard, there is again a video processing taking place, and now we are about to publish. Would you say it makes sense to have another quality control, or probably even the first quality control, to take place that very moment when I'm putting files towards the CDN?
I would say so, because wherever there's a transformation, transcoding, there is a potential change in the content, and that becomes a potential source of introduction of additional issues in the content. So it's wise, because as I said, at the delivery stage there may be 10 to 15 deliverables that may be created out of a single title, which are at different bit rates, different resolutions, and so on. And we have had instances, we have had customers telling us that out of those 10 profiles, there were issues in 2 profiles in certain sections of the content, which is very difficult to spot manually. No one is going to look at all those 15 profiles manually. So it is imperative to have an automatic QC applied there to spot such issues. And additionally, things like hardening or PSE, photosensitive epilepsy, for example. So if you have to deliver the content in UK or in Japan, for example, to consumers, there it is mandatory to run the content through PSE checks and ensure that there are no violations with respect to that. So those are regulations out there. So yes, and as additionally, as Michael was also saying, content is usually received from a wide range of content providers as well. So there's a lot of variety out there. So the ingest point in such workflows is also a very important point for QC, wherein it could be decided whether the content is really worth accepting or not. So yes, at the ingest and just before delivery, these two remain very important points from a QC perspective.
And when we think about what happens then next, means the actual streaming, what type of quality control is possible to guarantee that my end customer has a good quality of experience? You explained that the video itself must be of good quality, but aren't networks a topic then as well?
So, of course, we as a company, we don't deal in that part of the workflow, and there are companies who work on that. However, one part, because the content structure itself may have an impact on the viewer experience in terms of buffering, for example. So, before the content is put into CDN, we could validate that the bit rates are properly done, and when you're talking about chunks, for example, in HLS dash and so on, so those the chunk alignments are proper or not. So there could be things like those which we could check on the content part, but when it comes to actual delivery quality, that's a different space, wherein we are not yet there. So we are until the point when the content is ready for delivery.
Oliver, when we look back towards the operator and his supervisor who was creating such asset packages, and I could imagine that he has an interest also in following the flow, so knowing what happens downstream when he has sent off the asset packages. So what are the possibilities that we can offer to them in terms of monitoring, reporting, logging, and things like that?
Well, there's obviously quite a bit. Let's start with the optimal case, which is I have 1 million assets and I published 500,000. So I simply will see in my monitoring, I currently have 500,000 assets out there, and I can see where they are and if they are making money and how much they are making, and the duration of the publishing window, i.e. the rights. And going from that optimal case, you kind of grow the dashboard in the sense of, if you realize that you have certain checks at least for completeness of packaging. Do I have a trailer? Do I have a promo file? Do I have 3 pictures in this format, 4 pictures in that format? That will actually allow you to look into the packages. So lots of green ticks, obviously. And taking a step back again from that, saying, okay, I have my delivery package, but I can see there's lots of red X's. Where are my problems? That's a hugely important monitoring and management task, actually, because it tells you 2 things. What do I need to do in order to monetize this content? And I should be thinking about automating this somehow, because I don't want to, in every file, have to go back and do a manual process. So from an optimal case of you're really just watching the system go and you're seeing how much money you're making, that's when you're there. That's what we've got at MTV, for example, and we're pretty much there at RTL. But at RTL, when they started off, they told us quite bluntly, look, we're going to get files, we're going to get metadata, and we know we're going to miss pictures. We know we're going to miss rights information. We know we're not going to have the box cover images. So you need to build us something that will show us exactly per item, per delivery channel, per date, and there's other criteria. What do I need to do? So it really guides the user through his actions. He comes to the office or remote in the morning and he turns it on and he's got like a dashboard of these are your things to do for today. And if everything is green, you can just watch the money tick up. Then you've done a good job.
Thanks, Oliver, and thank you to all of you, to Michael and Vikas joining us in this morning session. And thanks also for our viewers to have been with us here at X-Dream Events in the auditorium. Please stay tuned. There's a next session to come up in just some minutes. And thanks to all.